Hey everyone, you are watching the workshop, The Equipment You Need to Get Started Canning. My name is Jenny and I blog at The Domestic Wildflower, and in this presentation I'm going to show you all the equipment you need and what you can skip when you want to get started canning. You are in the right place if you want to learn how to can but have no idea how to begin, think that canning is way too hard for you, want to learn from an expert who will make the process clear and simple. You're also in the right place if you are busy, want to learn more about eating better, don't want to learn all the things, who in the world has time for that, and want to add more homemade into your life. I know the last thing you need is a failed hobby or complicated culinary experience. And I also know you would like to feed yourself and your family a little better without making them sick in the process. And I bet you think canning sounds like a cool way to do that, but haven't tried because it seems super complicated and likely to make your family sick. Make sure you stay to the end to get a special bonus that will be sure to please all the people at your table. Today you will learn the equipment you need for canning and what you don't, why you need it and how to make the most of it in your kitchen, that you probably already have most of these items already. You will also learn why canning isn't as hard as you think and how you can be sure to be safe while doing it. So let me ask, have you ever started a new hobby, bought all the stuff, used it for a while, and then never used it again? I know I have. Those soap making molds are gathering dust in my closet. Whoops. I'm going to show you how you can use pots and pans you already own to start canning, so you don't end up with a bunch of gear to store. I have a teeny tiny kitchen, for real. I know how to can without a ton of pots and pans. Before we start, I have a question. Have you ever wondered what exactly is in your store-bought jam, pasta, salsa, etc.? Like, what in the world are those ingredients you can't even pronounce? I used to never think about that stuff. Then I had a baby, and two of my aunts got cancer. And now I think about what I eat a little bit more. One question. Do you ever feed yourself or your loved ones stuff you know you shouldn't? I am totally guilty. What are Otter Pops even made from? Don't even tell me what is in a frozen pizza. I'm no doctor, but making food at home is probably a lot better for you, and I know it tastes miles better. For me, canning has been the solution to lots of those worries. Canning allows me to feed my kids food that has ingredients that I can spell, made from fruit and veggies I chose myself. When I open a jar of home canned peaches, I don't have to worry about what is inside the jar, what the lid is coated with, what the mystery syrup is all about, because I made it. Sure, I still buy store-bought food sometimes, but canning has made me way less dependent on someone else to feed my family. I chose those peaches, I washed them, cut them up, and preserved a bunch all at once. Now I can choose them to feed my kids at one of the 25 snack times of the day. Canning gives you choice. When I started canning, I was pregnant with my first child. Some gals paint baby rooms, and I made 100 jars of applesauce. I wanted to learn what I had seen my grandma and mom do as a kid, and I made a ton of stressful mistakes. I learned a lot of things the hard way, including the stuff you need and the stuff you can skip. I learned what makes canning safe and what will make you sick. And now I can whenever I find produce at a good price, and I'm comfortable trying new recipes anytime. I keep a recipe book close by, but I have zero worries about safety or if the recipes will work. I always have a vegetable to serve up for supper, even if I'm super rushed and have nothing in the crisper. And it is really awesome to be able to give friends and family not another thing, but the gift of delicious homemade love in a jar. And now I'm a total canning nerd, and friends and blog readers always ask me about how in the heck canning works. I am such a canning enthusiast that I have had several canning related articles published, like here, and I write about canning all the time on my blog. Those are just some of my recipes and articles. Actually, those are all from last year. And after friends watch and help me can once or twice, they always say the same thing. Oh, I can do that. That's easier than I thought. What are we going to can next? Okay, let's get started. Here's what you need, and probably already have, to start canning. You need a water bath processing pot. This is the largest pot and is about 3 inches taller than the largest jar you will be canning up. These are the old-fashioned type of enamel or graniteware pots. You can get them new or used. They are really big, take a lot of time to come to a boil, and while they work really well, they are not necessary. So I think this is the pot that people think is an absolute must, and they associate it with canning, so they think you absolutely have to have it. And it's just, you just simply don't have to have a pot that big. I have one, and I can all the time, and I very rarely use it because it is so big. It's heavy when it's full of water. It takes a really long time to boil, and it's really hard to store. I can't fit mine in the kind of narrow cupboards that are directly adjacent to your stove sometimes, or just like in the most narrow space of cabinetry you might have in a kitchen. I think it's like 20 inches wide. It's too big to fit in that cabinet. So it's really just too big for what I use it for. If someone's going to loan you that pot, then sure, borrow it. But just know you don't have to go out and buy one, and you don't have to have that exact pot to get started canning. I use a large pasta or stew pot, and I actually use the one that is more similar to the one on the right. I use the same pot that I use to cook artichokes is the pot I can in. So just think, like, if it's big enough to do 2 artichokes at once, that's plenty big enough to can. It really just needs to be 3 inches taller than the tallest jar you're going to can in. So for example, the pot on the left is not that tall, right? It's like maybe 7 inches tall. But if you're canning a small batch of jam, you can use the really itty bitty jars. I want to say they're 4 ounces. They're really small, okay? And that you could easily can in that pot. And you very well may have a pot that size, or you could borrow a pot that size, right? But just know that you definitely do not have to have this gigantic black pot. If you get this black pot, it originally had this wire rack inside. If you're borrowing it or buying it at a thrift store, it may not still have that rack, and that's okay. If you can't find the rack, I have a solution on the next slide for you, but just know that there's probably one around, or at least there was one at some point, and if you can borrow the rack also, then you should. Both this rack and the next rack on the next slide I'll show you have a very important job. They keep the jars from rattling around on the bottom of the pot and breaking. And it's absolutely necessary. You have to have one. One time I used twist ties to tie together the rings, the canning jar rings, just to make like a lame attempt at a homemade rack, because for some reason I couldn't find my rack or something. And that didn't work, and I felt like that was a pretty good attempt at a homemade version. So you have to have a rack, or the next rack I'll show you. You have to have something. If you use a stock pot or a pasta pot, you need to have a silicone trivet. They are inexpensive, easy to find, and you can use them beyond canning. Like, you can just set it on your kitchen table and put your hot supper on it. I think I got that one for like $10 on Amazon. Sometimes they have cute, like, different shapes, and they have a ton of different colors, and I use mine very often, and I think I've had it for 5 years, and it still it still works just fine, and it hasn't broken down at all, even though it's just been boiled and boiled and boiled. It looks really nice and hasn't fallen apart yet. So I think that's a really good workaround, and you could use that in pots of a variety of sizes also. It also disconnects into, God, I'm trying to see on the picture where the connection is, but you can disconnect it and then fold it flat or stretch it out into a rectangle shape. And there are canning pots that are not round but rectangular, which is, sounds kind of weird to a newbie, but you could use 2 of these silicone things stretch out in rectangles if for some reason you didn't have a rack with that different kind of pot. So anyway, that's just kind of a workaround for the wire rack. And I like the silicone trivet also because you could use it for something other than canning. You need a saucepan to warm your lids and rings like this one. So it doesn't have to have a lid, it doesn't have to have a handle, it just has to be something you can hold warm water or hot water and get hot. In a pinch, I have used just a metal mixing bowl and hot water poured from my tea kettle. So it can really be anything for that particular use. You need a jar lifter, which is usually sold in a kit with two other very helpful items, a funnel and a lid lifter. So this is just what one type of kit looks like, and the contents of the kit usually are exactly the same, regardless of brand. This is what the Ball brand kit looks like. So the jar lifter has the black handle, and it's kind of like a rounded set of tongs that will pick up either size of canning jar and pull it from the boiling water. So it has a very important job from a safety standpoint, and I do not know how you would get the boiling water. I don't know how you would get the jars out of the boiling water without it. It's really important. This would be the one item that you probably don't already have in your kitchen if you've never canned before. It's also a very important item, so you cannot skip it. Because it's usually sold in a kit with these other items, I would say that for the $15 or $20 the brand new kit would cost, it would probably be worth it just to buy the kit and then get the usefulness out of the funnel and the lid lifter. The jar lifter removes the hot jars from hot water. The funnel keeps foods from thwarting a seal. The lid lifter grabs lids and rings from the saucepan and helps you put them on the jars. So the funnel isn't absolutely necessary. You could probably do it without it, but it is really handy. And if, like I said, if they come together, I think that might be your wisest purchase, is just to buy them all together. The lid lifter is it's just a little it's a plastic wand with a magnet on the end, and it works really well. It's pretty helpful. If you didn't have it, you could just use a fork probably. It'd be a little more awkward, but it would work. You need canning jars. They come in several sizes and only two opening sizes, regular and wide mouth. So this is not a comprehensive photo list at all, but this is just some of the different kinds of jars, just to give you an idea that they are far more numerous than just the standard quintessential quart jar shape and size. So the top left is a 3-quart or pint and a half jar, and that would be ideal. I use them for drinking water when I'm not canning. They would be good for canning tall spears of asparagus or tall dilly beans, or you could do a lot of different things, but they're a very pretty and very useful size. The next photograph is on from the leftover is just a 1 measuring cup or a half pint. That's a wide mouth. The green jar is I just showed to show you that there are colored options available. Ball brand has, I think it's called the Heritage Collection, but it's every year they come out with a new color, and so far they've released green, blue, and purple. And if I had to bet, I'd say pink would be the next color to come out, but what do I know? But you can do fun colors too. You can buy them in a flat or sometimes like a case, which would be like several flats. And then I included the final bottom right-hand side photograph because it has rounded sides and the sides are embossed with fruit and flowers, I think. That's typically called a jelly jar, and you could can other things other than jelly in it, but that is a different size. So all of them are made from glass that is designed to be submerged in boiling water, and all of the opening sizes are standardized. So a wide mouth jar lid and ring is going to fit every other wide mouth jar opening, and the same with the regular size mouth. I think that's a really wonderful thing about canning jars. And you can use used jars that you get at a thrift store or yard sale or borrowed from someone or from someone's attic. You just need to double check to make sure they aren't cracked or don't have any chips around the top edge. And buying them new is actually very inexpensive. I bet they're about $1 a piece. And obviously recyclable if you do break one. I just think they're wonderful. You need rings, also known as bands, which sometimes come on used jars and almost always come on new jars. So if you're buying jars at a yard sale or a thrift store, they may not have the rings around the top, And that's okay because you can buy them separately, but just know, if you're borrowing them from someone, they may have the rings somewhere also in a bag or separated for some reason. But you should just bear in mind that for every jar, you'll need a ring. So that's what they look like. They also come in cute colors and even like polka dot or gingham check. One site is really has lots of fun ones called Mason Jar Lifestyle. They have really cute choices with coordinating lids, of course. So there's a lot of cute ways you can dress up your canning jars. You need new lids. Used lids will not seal. You must have new lids. That will be the only item I ever tell you that you must buy brand new. You'll also probably hear people say, "Oh, well, I've used lids before, used lids before, and nothing bad happened to me, or they sealed just fine." Don't do that. You run the risk of the jar not sealing, and the whole point of canning is to create a safe and reliable seal. So, I don't know, at my more expensive grocery store in town, a dozen of lids not on sale is like $3.25. So, I promise I'm very conscientious of spending money, and I feel like that's a very worthwhile expense. Just get new lids. I chose just green ones because I wanted to let you know the Ball also has colored lids and rings to coordinate with their colored jars. And you of course could get just plain silver ones. They have I bought several boxes at a yard sale once of like kind of a fun vintage bronze color. They have gold ones. They have all different kinds, and it's just a matter of preference. If they are canning lids and rings, then you're in good shape. You need a trusted canning book. Choose one that has been published in the last 20 years, if not more recently, to ensure the most accurate information about safety. There are many, many books out there, but these are the ones I love personally. The top left is Canning for a New Generation by Liana Kristof, and I mean it with all my heart. When I got this book, it was like that was it. I had gone to the dark side. I was totally, totally hooked on canning. I love that this book has recipes that are both classic and very predictable, like strawberry jam, lots of basic recipes, but it also has a wide variety of kind of unusual things and or multicultural stuff, stuff that your grandma did not can, right? Like lots of different things. I'm trying to think of a good example, but it has lots and lots of good recipes. Furthermore, it is arranged by season, which I think is a very smart way for a canning book to be arranged. So you can open it up to whatever season you're currently in and get excited about what you could actually realistically can this weekend or today. So if you're a brand new canner, you may not realize that today, here in July, it would be kind of an unsensible or unreasonable or it would make sense for you to get super excited about canning apples today. You're not going to make applesauce today because apples aren't ripe today. Where I live, apples aren't ripe until until October practically. So I think that book is arranged in a very sensible way, especially for a brand new beginner. On the top right, we have Food in Jars by Marissa McClellan. She is a wonderful resource for beginners. She has several books all under the name Food in Jars. She's really good too, I think, for a modern canner because she cans in a tiny apartment on the East Coast. Okay, so her batches are small. They are manageably sized. Her recipes you can can up and be done in probably an hour and a half, maybe. Her blog of the same name, foodinjars.com, is also really great. And I followed her blog, and then I bought Canning for a New Generation, and that was it. I was done. I was a canner for life after that. The bottom left is the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. They have another book that has a strangely same name that's a different book, and then that's the Ball Blue Book of Canning and Preserving. And I have the one that is not actually pictured, but they're very, very similar, and I think the recipes within are also good. And it's a very extensive resource, so I would say that would be a great book for anyone, even if you're more than a beginner. If you are an intermediate or experienced canner, you would get a lot out of either of those texts. And they are definitely tried and true and well-tested recipes that you could count on. The final book that I love that I could recommend from personal use is on the bottom right. Well Preserved by Eugenia Bone is like, I feel like canning 2.0. And I don't mean more difficult recipes, but I mean a little bit more sophisticated recipes. And they are arranged, her book is arranged like there's a recipe and then 3 recipes that follow that use that canned item for an hors d'oeuvre, for breakfast, and for dinner time. So for example, I think one of the recipes is cherries and wine. And so you can your cherries and wine, and you have several jars of that canned up. And with that, you can make, I think she does cherries and wine over duck. And then she has a recipe where you take the cherries and wine and puree it up fine and then layer it with whipped cream and some beautiful like trifle-like dessert. So that addresses a very important concern once you get started canning. You have to have ways to eat up the stuff you preserve. And, you can only eat so much toast, right? She has really smart and realistic ways of eating up and enjoying the things you preserve. So those are the books that I love, but lots of books. There's many wonderful resources out there. Don't limit yourself to what these 4 recipes or these 4 books. You can get lots of great other books. A food mill is not necessary, but I love mine, so I wanted to show it to you. I use it in many recipes as well as for making baby food and fresh purees. So it looks like that. I actually was given the baby food version at my baby shower, and it has green handle and a green little rubber grippies on the bottom. And I love it because it's not an appliance that's going to break. It is easy to take apart, easy to wash, and it just works really, really well. It is very effective, and it actually does not take as long as you might think. So the idea is that you take fresh or cooked fruit or vegetable, put it in the top section, and then turn the handle, and beneath and below into a bowl will fall perfectly pureed applesauce or jam or just perfectly pureed food product. And what remains up top is the skin, seeds, stems, cores, the parts of the fruit that you don't want. So you could take apples and just chop them into quarters, boil them for a few minutes with a little water, and run them through the food mill, and then what would fall below would be applesauce, perfectly smooth applesauce, and you would never have to peel or core or stem the apples. It would just, that refuse would remain up top, and you could just scoop that out and put it in the compost and be done with it. So it's a very, very effective and reasonably priced tool that will last you probably your whole life. It's very well made, and you do not have to have one, but I love mine and I use it a lot. If you don't have one, you don't have to get one. A blender would do a similar job in lots of ways. An immersion blender is also helpful. You could just use a knife. You don't have to have one, but it is really handy. And if your mother-in-law is, sharing stuff with you or whatever, that would be a good thing to ask for. Finally, you need a mentor. And that's me. That's where I come in.